Hello dear students, welcome to Pen and Paper Chemistry. The topic we are taking up now is structure of atom. So let us first define what we mean by an atom. The present definition of atom says the smallest particle of an element which can take part in a chemical reaction. So it is the smallest entity which undergoes a chemical change. Here, I would like to point out that earlier the definition that you would have seen according to Dalton's concept was the smallest indivisible particle of an element. Now, this word I am stressing because earlier it was believed that an atom cannot be split into smaller particles, or it is the smallest particle which is existing in nature, right? But after a series of experiments, scientists were able to decipher and they have determined that an atom is made up of a number of other particles. Which ones are those? For the present level of understanding, we will stick to the three major particles: the electrons, protons, and the neutrons. These were discovered by different scientists in different years. So we started with J.J. Thomson discovering the electron, Goldstein talking about the protons. By the way, they were named so by Rutherford, and Chadwick much later in the 1930s somewhere, he gave the concept of neutrons. He discovered the neutrons. So now we know that an atom is made up of three particles. We talk about the proton, the neutron, and the electron, right? Now, how are these arranged in an atom? Let's go ahead and see it. In order to explain the presence of the proton, the neutron, and electron in an atom, different scientists, they proposed various models of the atom. Now, this is a term that you will come across. What do you mean by model? Model means displays. Who displays that the same thing can be worn in different ways. That's what you will connect, right? So when we talk about model of the atom, means different views of the scientists according to their experiments and observations, right? What they felt and what they deciphered was the structure of an atom. That means how are these three particles arranged in an atom is what we mean by model of an atom. There were many attempts by different scientists, the notable one being the Thomson's model, Rutherford's model, Bohr's model. The present model is actually the quantum mechanical model, and if you are a student of 9th or 10th level, that is, I am talking about the secondary level, we will concentrate our study onto the Bohr's model of the atom. When we talk about Bohr's model of the atom, we will be taking the good points from the other models and consolidating it as the model of the atom, which is apt for your level of understanding. As you move to higher education in this field, you will find that we will split it further. So let's go ahead and understand the concept of Bohr's model of the atom. By the way, don't forget that these models were not given randomly. They were actually based on the experiments and the observations of these scientists. According to the Bohr's model of the atom. Now, before I go ahead with the Bohr's model of the atom, quickly grab a pen and a paper or your notebook in which you can note down whatever we are going to do in this video and the other videos further, because they become good for as notes for offline reference when you do not have access to YouTube, yes, close to your examinations, right? So what do we have is the Bohr's model of the atom. He said, okay, according to this model, he said atom has two parts to it, the nucleus and the orbits. What does the nucleus contain? It contains the neutrons and the protons. Nucleus. What do you mean by nucleus? Something which is in the center, the heart of the whole place. That is what we mean by the nucleus, the central unit. Orbits would be something like the orbit of the planet around the sun, right? So we can compare it to our solar system. The orbits, they contain the electrons, or they provide space to the electrons. So this is our model of the atom according to the Bohr's concept, or the Bohr's model of the atom. So let us fit in the proton and the neutron into the nucleus. The electrons, on the other hand, are present in these orbits. Now, these orbits, if you notice, I am not putting all of the electrons in one place. Can you tell me why the electrons, all the electrons cannot fit into this small first orbit itself? Why do we need more than one orbit to fit the electrons? Here the concept is very much like your school. In the school, all the students, so let us suppose there are 200 students in a school. Do all students attend the same class? No. They are divided into various classes. So you have class 1, you have class 2, class 3, and so on and so forth. And the students in these classes are grouped according to their level of knowledge, right? Whatever is the level of knowledge, they are tested, right? What we call as the entrance test, so as to check their eligibility for a particular class. That way, the school becomes more manageable, right? So the atom also thinks it that way. I can't have all the electrons in one orbit. If I do that, my whole system would be a mess, right? So what do? They say, okay, let's spread them out. And they spread them out in these circular paths. These are circular paths, and these are called as orbits. I'll tell you something interesting as well about these orbits. By the way, these circular paths, according to Bohr, were called as 1, 2, 3, and so on. Or he said you can also name them as K, L, M, N, and so on. Not A, B, C, D. No, he didn't start with A, B, C, D. He said you can name them as K, L, M, and so on. Can you find out the reason why he started with K, L, M, N? Yes, it's something to do with spectroscopy, which may be beyond the level of your requirement at this point. These circular paths are concentric. Do you understand the meaning of the word concentric? Having the same center. So their center is the same, their size. So this is my first orbit. This is the second orbit, right? So what is happening over here is the size of the orbit is increasing. With the result, an electron in the second orbit is further away from the nucleus compared to an electron in the first orbit. Here, electron 1 is closer to the nucleus compared to electron number 2 that I have shaded over here. Right? Now, I was talking about telling you something interesting. You know, these orbits, circular paths, they are also known as energy levels. Maybe you do not have this word mentioned in your course book, but just for additional knowledge, would you like to know why they are called energy levels? Okay, for those who are inquisitive, if an electron is present in an orbit, it will have some energy associated with it. That is why it is called as energy level. So, an electron in the first energy level will have energy E1. An electron in the second orbit will have energy E2. An electron in the third orbit will have energy E3, and so on and so forth. If it wants to go from E1 to E2, so if a student wants to go from class 1 to class 2, they need to do that extra study, right? They need to study the course curriculum and then be eligible for class 2, right? Same way, from class 2 to class 3, they will have to put in some extra effort. The same thing happens over here. If an electron is to go from energy level 1 to energy level 2, it needs to acquire some energy. The energy of each orbit is greater than that of the inner one. So, E3 is greater than E2 is greater than E1, and so on and so forth. Right? Would you like to note down these points? So, we've listed the first point over here, which says an atom consists of a small, dense. Why are we saying dense nucleus in the center? All your protons and neutrons are huddled into this small space. That's why we say it's small, dense nucleus in the center. It is just like you students and the teachers are occupying the whole campus of the school. But what about the administration staff? What about the main office? What about the principal's office? Yes, it's a small place in the center of the school. So the same is the nucleus. The nucleus contains the protons and the neutrons, protons being positively charged and neutrons being neutral. So P for positive and P for protons. N for neutral, N for neutrons, right? So what do you think is the charge on the nucleus? See the statements that we have written over here. Think about it. Tell me, what is the charge on the nucleus? Okay, third point. Electrons are present outside the nucleus in circular orbits, and these orbits are well-defined concentric circles having the same center. So could you determine the charge on the nucleus? Yes, it will be positive. Why positive? Because the protons, which are positively charged, are residing inside the nucleus. Let's go on to the fourth point. An electron in any energy level has a fixed amount of energy associated with it. That is why we use the term energy levels. We number them as 1, 2, 3, 4 or K, L, M, N and so on. In any neutral atom, please be very careful of the word neutral atom. The number of protons is equals to the number of electrons. So, if an atom has 5 protons and 5 electrons, what will be the charge on it? Very good. It will be a zero charge, what we call as neutral. That is why in my statement I have written over here, in a neutral atom. What will happen if your atom has charge on it? So let's suppose I write it as Na positive. Yes, it becomes an ion now. It is no longer a neutral atom, it is an ion. So we are talking about a sodium ion and not a sodium atom. This topic is not yet over. We are still continuing with it. on the advice of some sincere and honest reviewers of the channel who suggested that I should deal with small portions and have more clarity of thought. So, respecting their views, we shall continue with this topic in the next video, where we shall be talking about atomic number, mass number, and many other things. And how do we decide how many students go to class 2, how many to 3, how many to 4, and so on. All of it in the next video. So please stay tuned and stay subscribed. Thank you for spreading the happiness.